Peace, family. I know who it is. It's Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba. Lumumba, back once again, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black in conjunction with Bequaline Network, the Pan African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African centered news and information. Definitely happy you all can make it. Haywood, greetings from Columbia, South Carolina. I can't wait to hear the answers. Absolutely. Hopefully, you could tap in, be part of the conversation as well on this Kwanzaa Eve. Once again, family, it's Kwanzaa Eve. Happy that you all are with us. Make sure you want to make sure that you all tap in and, of course, be part of the conversation on this afternoon, Kwanzaa Eve. And so we have a show. It's titled "What Is Your Beef for Pan-Africanism?" Decided to do this show impromptu show based on a actual dialogue I saw on X, formerly known as Twitter, with of course our partner Bequaline Network. We was going back and forth with some brothers and sisters regarding Pan-Africanism. There were a number of individuals who, of course, were making some claims regarding Pan-Africanism that were adverse to the facts. And so it is our belief that we need to, of course, tap in and have a conversation about, of course, what is your beef with Pan-Africanism. As many of you know, we did a show couple months ago on is sexism Pan-Africanism's Achilles heel, based on the fact that there was a sister who wrote an article regarding alleging sexism in the Pan-Africanist movement. Of course, when we read the article, of course we went through the article on the live, we saw that she was making claims about sexism in Black organizations, but these organizations weren't Pan-Africanist organizations, right? They were oftentimes were Black Marxist organizations, religious organizations, and even integrationist organizations. So that was an issue. And so we think this is a chance to set the record straight. We know there's been a cacophony of discord from the FBA clan regarding Pan-Africanism, right? So once again, family, this is a chance to discuss what is your beef for Pan-Africanism. Hopefully we're able to, actually address some misconceptions about the ideology and movement that we now know, of course, called Pan-Africanism. So just want to make sure that's the case, family. As you all know, the link is in the description. I will put the link in the chat momentarily, but we also want to make sure that we go over the ground rules here at, of course, Lumumba Speaks and Bequaline Network before we get started. So first and foremost, family, as you all know, diversity of thought is welcome, irrespective if you're on the left, you're on the right, or you're right down the middle politically. This is a place where we can have a conversation, an intellectual conversation, an intelligent conversation, and an incisive conversation. Number two, no racial epithets. No epithets of any kind are allowed on the platform. This is a space in which we believe in Black power. We believe in the three ends of Black power, and those are, of course, self-respect, self-defense, and last but not least, self-determination. Number three, facts over feelings. What does that mean? If we, of course, have this type of conversation that I believe we will have this afternoon, we want to make sure that we attack the argument that a person is making and not the person themselves, right? So we want to make sure we attack the argument, not the person. No ad hominems, facts over feelings. And then, of course, number four, last but not least, no fundamentally false statement. So you can be of the ilk, and you could be someone who believes that LeBron James is the greatest basketball player to ever live. He is the GOAT. However, you cannot make a claim that's patently false. You can't say that LeBron James is the GOAT because Michael Jordan only won 2 championships. That is a fundamentally false statement. And of course, as a professional and as a scholar, it would hurt my credibility to allow people to come on my platform and make claims that are patently false. So if you make a claim that's patently false, I will interrupt, push back, and say, no, that is not the case. We want to make sure that we're accurate here. We also know part of this is necessary because one of the critiques of people who are African-centered, Black-minded, etc., whatever term you want to use, is that we tend to make up our own facts, right? We resort to alternative facts. We know that one of the most specific critiques of Black studies is that Black people didn't have any history, so Black people go around just making up history. So we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence in terms of not only research, but the claims that we're making as we have this dialogue. And then, of course, last but not least, family, our mission here at Lumumba Speaks and Bequaline Network is neither to exonerate or vilify, but to simply challenge conventional wisdom and re-examine what has previously been accepted as fact. So, of course, for the Bequaline, he's here in the chat, of course, said, let's talk about it. We're looking forward to the conversation. Malik Zulu Shabazz, He has the Black Power fist up for the Malik Zulu Shabazz. We know you're based in the DMV. Hopefully you could tap in and be part of the conversation as well. Looking forward to hearing from you. And so, family, the link is in the description. The link is now in the chat, so we could get this conversation started regarding what is your beef with Pan-Africanism. And it doesn't even have to be a beef. You may just have questions about Pan-Africanism, and we're more than willing to, of course, allow that to be the case where we answer some questions. But once again, family, the link is in the description, link is in the chat. And this is, once again, this came about as a result of a back and forth that I saw Brother Bikulan was having on X, formerly known as Twitter. And so as a result of that, I said, we need to just have a conversation about this, really try to clear some things up, and hopefully, people could get a better understanding of Pan-Africanism. This isn't a movement with individuals seeking to proselytize, right? So this isn't a situation where we're seeking to force someone to become a Pan-Africanist. But I think it is important that we try to clear up as much information as possible. Brother Jay, peace, Black African family. Appreciate you. As brother Mr. Sandman always say, happy Pan-African Tuesday, right? Happy Pan-African Tuesday. But once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. We want to hear from you all regarding what is your beef with Pan-Africanism. So once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. If you're watching on Twitter, you're more than willing to tap in as well. I'm actually going to put the link in the comments on Twitter, where X, formerly known as Twitter. So if you all want to tap in, you can. If you're watching on Twitter. So give me 1 second here while I square that away. Let's see here. All right. What is your beef? What is your beef with Pan-Africanism? So I'll put the link, of course, underneath the video on Twitter. So once again, family, if you all want to tap in, be part of the conversation, you're more than welcome to do so. But once again, family, this doesn't even have to be a beef. You may have questions about the Pan-Africanist movement. You may have issues and concerns in terms of what are some of the core tenets of Pan-Africanism. You may even take issue regarding how it came to be. So once again, family, this is a situation in which, of course, I think we can have a productive conversation. President Johnson says the community's mind has been routed out by the FBA site. Okay. Once you can tap in, brother, you can kind of share with us what you mean by that. But a big line, I hope you could tap in as well. Shout out to Brother Dwayne Omawale, the favorite historian, favorite professor. And of course, Brother Jabril Africa as well. We're talking about the Pan-African organizer extraordinaire as well. So definitely hope you all could tap in. FBA takes an oppositional position to Pan-Africanism. Hopefully, Brother Preston John, you could tap in and share with us what is that oppositional position that FBA takes, right? I'm quite sure I'm familiar with what the position is, but hopefully we can have someone else to tap in and be part of the convo. That way I'm not monopolizing, of course, the discourse here on the program. Peace to all my Pan-Africans. Shout out to brother. Appreciate you, brother. Once again, family, the link is in the description. Link is in the chat. Once again, you do not have to cam up to be part of the conversation, and you can use a pseudonym if you want to protect your identity. So once again, family, the link is in the description. Link is in the chat. There's been a number of misconceptions on Twitter during the back and forth. One of the individuals stated that Pan-Africanists were responsible for why Fat Joe believed he could use the N-word, right? And of course, Brother B. Klein provided a retort stating that's not the case at all. In fact, Fat Joe stated that the reason why he believed he was allowed to use the N-word was because Minister Farrakhan, the leader of the Nation of Islam, was the one who told him that he was a black man. And we know the Nation of Islam is not a Pan-Africanist organization. The Nation of Islam is a religious nationalist organization in which the members believe that they are members of a lost tribe, a lost ethnic group, the tribe of Shabazz, which we know was fictitious. There was never a tribe of Shabazz in Africa. But that's a conversation for another day. We did a 3-part series on the Nation of Islam, Unpacking the Nation of Islam, Cult or Community. If you haven't watched that 3-part series and when you're interested in doing so, you go on to LumumbaSpeaks.com on YouTube. And of course, under the playlist, we had a 3-part series regarding the Nation of Islam. So once again, family, if you are interested in having a conversation, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Once again, if you're watching on X, formerly known as Twitter, I actually shared the link in the comment below the video, so you could tap in and be part of the conversation as well. Once again, you do not have to use you do not have to cam up, and you can use a pseudonym. You do not have to use your actual name to be part of the conversation. Pastor John states FBA is largely a sock puppet project patterned after the white nationalist anti-immigration movement. The talking points and policy positions are in seamless alignment. Okay, sock puppet project. I would love for you to tap in and let me know what you mean by sock puppet project. But yes, that is something that I have seen in terms of white nationalist anti-immigration movements. And of course, many members of the FBA have taken on those talking points. Agree with you there. We're seeing a shift towards the radical right amongst many so-called Black conscious people, the Black conscious community. And so we can even unpack that as long as it, of course, connects with the conversation regarding what is your beef with Pan-Africanism. But Abandale, appreciate you hitting the like on Facebook. Tap in, be part of the conversation. But Abandale, love to hear from you. Shout out to the DYT, the 937 of Gem City, the home of Paul Dunbar, the world's first world-renowned African-American poet and novelist, and of course the Wright brothers who were first in flight, home of the Howard Players, home of Roger Troutman, and of course the home of funk music. Shout out to the DYT, the 937, my hometown, Dayton, Ohio. So once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. You do not have to cam up. And of course, you do not have to use your actual name. You can use a pseudonym to be part of the convo. Yvette Cornell was found to have served on the boards of several white conservative groups. The beef may be what has been the concrete benefit of the movement when we look at the community that Pan-African is geared up to help or uplift. See, I can agree with that, brother Max. Hopefully you can tap in and be part of the conversation. But there's a brother who calls in from London. He says, and one of the things that we need to do as Pan-Africanists is actually produce some wins, right? I argue, and it's not so innocent plug in my master's thesis, that one of the reasons why Pan-Africanism has actually fallen from being the vanguard of the movement against, of course, anti-Black oppression was because of a number of setbacks that the Pan-Africanist movement faced in the 1960s and onward. We talk about the assassination of not only African heads of state, but also Caribbean heads of state and even activists, right? We talk about one of Malcolm X. We talk about Patrice Lumumba. We talk about Steve Biko, right? We could talk about Kwame Nkrumah and the U.S. CIA-backed coup, that, of course, removed him from office. So we talk about that as well. That this causes people say, hey, why would I hitch myself to, of course, a train that seems to not be going anywhere, right? So I think that would be a accurate critique of the movement. Serious music tradition coming out of Ohio. Salute, absolutely. Spears says Pan-Africanism is a good idea in theory, but Africans aren't with it. As a former Pan-African who interacted with Africans usually have an ideology of capitalism and personal gain. So definitely want you to tap in, Brother Spears. I think there's a lot we can unpack here. I think there's a lot that we can unpack from the comments you're making. One, we don't want to speak in generalizations, particularly regarding African people. The second issue is you can be a capitalist and be a Pan-Africanist. A great example of someone who was a capitalist and was a Pan-Africanist was Marcus Garvey, right? So definitely hope you could tap in. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. And share with us, of course, what led you to no longer be a Pan-Africanist. You can also share what led you to Pan-Africanism and what caused you to, of course, divest from the movement. Let's see here. Shabaka. Peace, power, and respect for all Pan-Africans. Pan-Africanism is study, research, and work. Pan-Africanism in its early stages, Pan-Africanism would awake a sleeping giant, Africa. Okay, very good, very good. Appreciate your sentiments, Pastor John. FBA spends vast amounts of precious time castigating immigrants as opposed to organizing for reparations. Also an issue that we can address as well. So once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Brother Spears, definitely hope to hear from you. Once again, the links in the description, the links in the chat regarding what brought you to Pan-Africanism and what caused you to, of course, move away from the movement. So once again, if you're watching on Twitter, we have quite a few viewers on Twitter. If you want to be part of the conversation, you can. The link is in the comments below the video. So once again, the link is in the comments below the video, or you come on over to YouTube, Lumumba Speaks or Beacon Network, and be part of the conversation here. But definitely want to hear from you all regarding your issues. What is, of course, your beef with Pan-Africanism for the Beacon Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the African-centered news and information. How you doing today, brother?
Peace, brother Lumumba. How you doing?
I'm doing quite all right. You know, it's Dr. Lumumba now, so I'm doing quite all right. You know, we're gonna big up. We're gonna big up, you know.
Congrats, brother. Congrats. I'm proud of you, bro.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
But I was hoping some of our FBA family members would hop on the live to discuss, because I've been seeing a lot of like tweets going viral, just basically just diminishing Pan-Africanism without fully even understanding what Pan-Africanism is.
Very true.
And I think another important note I think our people need to understand is that Pan-Africanism is an ideology, but it's also an objective. So we're trying to accomplish Pan-Africanism. And most of our people come at Pan-Africanism as if it's already been established. And it's not. We're still working to establish and implement these objectives. And I think that becomes a problem, because people just expecting Black people globally to have a Pan-African mindset. And most Black people, to be honest, is probably a minority that actually understand everything that Pan-Africanism entails, the objectives. Like, most of our people are not really familiar with Pan-Africanism. They might be familiar with Dr. Umar or, you know, some of the popular Pan-Africanists, but they're not really familiar with the ideology and the objectives of this ideology. So I think that's when it becomes very problematic, when we on Twitter just spewing misinformation. So I was hoping some of our brothers can hop on the stream so we can have the discussion. But
right. So, Brother Haywood, I see you stated FBA is a lineage. Hopefully, you can tap in and be part of the conversation. Shabbat and Pan-Africanism have objectives and goals: the total unification and liberation of Africa. What are the goals of FBA? Right. So, once again, you do not have to use your actual name. You can use a pseudonym, and you don't have to come up to be part of the conversation. So, definitely would like to hear from you all regarding, of course, what is your beef for Pan-Africanism, but of course, what are some questions that you may have about Pan-Africanism? We know, as I said before, when I come in contact with individuals who tend to have an anathema for Pan-Africanism, it appears that anathema is based on misinformation. For example, I was having a conversation with a family member, and he listed out about maybe eight things that he felt were problematic when it came to Pan-Africanism, right? But none of the issues that he mentioned had anything to do with Pan-Africanism. And
exactly.
Guess where he got his information from?
Where?
Tariq Nasheed.
Of course.
Right. So it's very important that we want to make sure that if individuals do have an issue, if you have a critique, you have an accurate critique. For example, Brother B. Kolan can share, he can speak to this. Sometimes I have a vociferous critique of feminism, correct? Would you agree?
Correct. And so do I.
Right. However, I'm able to make that critique because I have an informed critique, because I have a large assortment of feminist literature that I, of course, ingratiate myself with. So it's important that if you're going to have a critique, right, you have a informed critique of whatever issue or objective or initiative or program that you take umbrage with.
I agree. And I would love for the brother to hop on and explain to us how FBA is a lineage.
Right.
People continue to use this talking point.
And very, very quickly, just briefly, right, we talk about me critiquing feminism. I have some feminist literature, right? Feminism is for Everyone by Bell Hooks. Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall, right? So when I make a claim, right, I have a critique because it's an informed critique. So I just want to make sure I provide some literature for you all.
Quick question.
If you want to have a critique of something, of course, you want to have an informed critique. But once again, Brother Haywood, you can tap in. The link is in the description, family. The link is in the chat. We need some people to tap in and be part of the conversation.
Right. And so, quick question about Bell Hooks. What's your opinion of Bell Hooks and her writings?
Well, we actually did an entire show critiquing Bell Hooks.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't want to divert from the conversation that we're having, of course, this afternoon. But
That's true.
um,
That's true.
the argument I would make is that she gets a lot wrong. She misrepresents African history. She pathologizes black men in the same vein
Victimized.
that white supremacists and white nationalists have for years. Um, and she she makes a number of claims that are adverse to facts, right? And some of the claims she makes is absolutely nonsensical. I had the pleasure of attending an academic conference where she was a keynote speaker, and one of the things that she stated during her time after she spoke, and this was question and answer, right? She
Right.
stated, "Well, you know how patriarchal men are. Patriarchal men in relationships, they want intimacy and companionship." And I said, well, if there isn't intimacy and a companionship, it's not a romantic relationship. It's a platonic relationship, dumbass. What
She
type of
does that
peanut butter and
very
jelly
often.
shit is this? You know what I mean? Like, seriously.
With no footnotes too, by the way.
Yeah, so she makes a number of claims that are nonsensical, but because, a matter of fact, in her book, Real Cool, she states that a consensual sexual intercourse between a man and a woman is still an act of violence towards the woman because the woman is being penetrated. Makes no sense whatsoever. But she made that claim, of course, because she's a member of a particular community that has, and she is trying to what? Get rid of the competition.
Yeah.
So something to consider when we talk about why Bell Hooks makes some of the claims that she does. But once again, we want to make sure we stay on task and make major things major. The conversation this afternoon, but I appreciate the question, Brother B. Kulan, is what is your beef with Pan-Africanism? Tap in, be part of the conversation, and let us know what issues you have with Pan-Africanism, what questions you have about Pan-Africanism, and why, if you do, you take umbrage with it. So this is the chance for everyone to tap in and be part of the conversation. So definitely look forward to hearing from you all. The links in the description, links in the chat. See here, Max states, look, rapper Lord Jamar is also saying the FBI is a lineage. Those who subscribe to him, Jamar is of Guyanese ancestry. So once again, let's have this conversation, family.
I think Lord Jamore's a flat earther or something. Brother's very confused.
Well, I think a lot of people are very confused.
Yeah.
Right, and it's rather unfortunate, but I think a lot of people are confused. But
And what's
we're
sad?
here today to hopefully provide a solution to some of that confusion, particularly when it comes to Pan-Africanism. So once again, family, if you want that smoke, this is your chance. This is the opportunity. Come get it, right? Come get it. Come get it. But how you been, Brother B. Kulan? Absolutely. So once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. Still looking to hear from Brother Hayward, Prester John. There's a number of individuals that we would love to hear from. Brother Spears, Napalm Spears. Definitely want to hear from you. You said that you are a former Pan-Africanist. Definitely want to hear what led you to Pan-Africanism and why you chose to remove yourself from the movement. But I think this is also rather curious. Brother B. Kulan, I think you could speak to this, that oftentimes people will make comments about Pan-Africanism that, of course, are adverse to the facts. And then when you allow them the opportunity to have a platform to discuss these things, particularly with individuals who are educated, they typically go MIA. Would you argue that that is something that you've come across as well? Brother B. Kulan, you got to unmute your mic. All right. Hopefully, you come tap back in. But once again, family, the link is in the description, link is in the chat. Tap in and be part of the conversation. We're discussing what is your beef with Pan-Africanism. Tap in, be part of the combo. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Want to hear from you all. Once again, if you're watching on X, formerly known as Twitter, you're more than willing to tap in as well. Of course, the link is under the video. I put it in the comments. So definitely want to hear from you all regarding what are some questions you have about Pan-Africanism. And of course, if you have any concerns or if you're opposed to Pan-Africanism, definitely want to hear from you all. But the link's in the description, link is in the chat. And once again, family, to be part of the conversation, you can use the pseudonym and you do not have to cam up to be part of the convo. So this is a situation where you could tap in and be part of the conversation. So looking forward to hearing from you all. We know we have a number of viewers, and so tap in, be part of the combo. Let's just get this conversation started. Get the conversation started. But once again, you're watching Lumumba Speaks, and of course, the Beacon Network. If you're watching, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, and hit the notification bell, right, for future videos. But once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. It's Dr. Bakari Lumumba of LumumbaSpeaks.com, and we're seeking to have a conversation regarding what is your beef with Pan-Africanism. Follow me here. What is your beef with Pan-Africanism? What is your concern with Pan-Africanism? Why are you opposed to Pan-Africanism? Then, of course, last but not least, what questions do you have about Pan-Africanism? So tap in, family, be part of the conversation this afternoon. We're going into the evening. Tap in, be part of the conversation this afternoon and evening.
Sorry about that, brother. I was having connections issues.
Okay.
But I was saying I 100% agree with you. For example, the brother I was having a little back and forth with on Twitter, I've been contacting the brother, DMing the brother, no response.
Right, Brother Spears, once again, I see your comment. Tap in and be part of the conversation. Right, you don't have to use your actual name. You can use a pseudonym, and we would love to hear from you. You'll see Game Related says, firstly, I'd offer African as a problematic term, and that it's overly general and seemingly used primarily by American blacks who've lost their connection to their identity. I would disagree. Tap in and be part of the conversation. Tap in and be part of the conversation. Notice that A. Dawson, FBA, who beef with Pan-Africanism, can never answer this important question. If Pan-Africanism was such a failure, who were the Pan-Africanists in history that were responsible for its failure, with a cause and effect analysis of the role they played in failure of Pan-Africanism? So once again, family, Game Related, you made a claim. Tap in and be part of the conversation, and hopefully you can substantiate it. Once again, you're not going to be attacked. We attack the argument, not the person here at Lumumba Speaks and Beacon Network. And more importantly, we want to have an incisive conversation that is not lowbrow, but of course speaks to our higher self. So once again, family, tap in, be part of the combo. You're watching LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black Empowerment Initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, and of course, Beacon Network, Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African-centered news and information. So not a claim, just a thought. Well, understood, but I would argue that the thought that you provided is adverse to the facts. African Americans aren't the only people that use the term African, right? We find this in the Caribbean. We particularly find this on the continent, and even, of course, in Europe as well, right? Another example that I would argue would disabuse one of the thought you made is that Kwanzaa, for example, is coming up. We know this is Kwanzaa Eve, right? Kwanzaa is, of course, a Pan-African holiday that is celebrated on every continent in the world except Antarctica, right? And Kwanzaa is a holiday that celebrates the best of what it means to be African and human in the fullest sense, right? So just right there, that would, of course, disabuse one of the thought that you made, but you're still able to tap in and be part of the conversation. Africa is the only lineage of African people. How can any Black person be against Pan-Africanism? Well, I think, once again, there are individuals who tend to not be unaware of what Pan-Africanism is. Black Americans are a unique people with a history that is inextricably linked to the Caribbean and Africa. So we use the term African Americans here at Lumumba Speaks and Beacon Network. We use the term African Americans, not Black Americans. As we know, African Americans are only ethnic group in America that is identified by color rather than, of course, a place, right? So something to consider, of course. That's not me being brilliant. I'm actually borrowing from the brilliant work of Dr. Ali Missouri. Provide triggers for evolution. I think that the majority of Black folks beef with Pan-Africanism is that it requires our separation from the institutions of the white dominant culture. We have become so integrated that the notion of separation is scary. I said primarily Africans in Africa refer to themselves by tribe. If you call them African, they typically take offense. So one, I would disagree with that. I was just in Africa this past in July, and that's not the case. We also want to use the term ethnic group, not tribe, because tribe, of course, connotates something that's primitive, lacking civilization and refinement. So we use the term ethnic group. But also, the term calling someone on the continent African is not a pejorative. We tend to find they call them, that's just not the case whatsoever. Elon Musk is an African American. He's not an African American. Elon Musk is a
Mm-hmm.
European who has lived in Africa.
And
We
can we go back to that last comment?
the book, right? But once again, game related. You're commenting. Tap in, be part of the
Yeah, I
conversation.
would love to have the discussion.
You
I'm a
do not have
continental
the
African,
camera
by
up,
the way.
and of course, you can use a pseudonym, right? Tap in, be part of the convo. Pastor John, appreciate the correction, no doubt. It is fundamentally an issue of racial esteem and building the courage to create full, truly African-centered institutions. Understood. So once again, family, a lot of people in the comments, we need you all to tap in and be part of the conversation.
For sure, brothers. Tap in,
Yes,
tap in.
need you to tap in, and sisters as well. You know, one of the critiques people have, of course, of the platform is there aren't enough sisters who are part of the conversation. We don't discriminate here, right? The sisters watch the show. If they want
Okay.
sisters on the show, you got to tap in and be part of the convo.
Mhm. Brother
Is that
Lumumba, can we go back to Game Relator's comment about he said I said primarily Africans in Africa refer to themselves by tribes.
yes?
Yeah, I will.
Go right ahead. I think we having some issues, brother Bequaline. I don't know if are you using a phone or computer. Let's see here. Yeah, you're having some issues. Are you using a phone or a computer?
Yeah, I'm on my phone right now and it keeps kicking me off because of my connection. Sorry about that.
I
But
see. Okay.
I would love to have the discussion with the brother because I've heard this same argument several times on Twitter, and I don't know where people get this from. Like, so as Black people, we have multiple classifications. For example, I'm African, I'm Black, I'm Timni, I'm Sierra Leonean, I'm from like we have multiple classifications. So just because an African identifies with Yoruba does not mean that he doesn't see himself as an African. Africans know they're Africans. Like that's not
Right.
even a argument.
Right.
Argument
And
I do
so
kind of
one would then could then make the argument that that claim is being made out of ignorance.
definitely.
Go
But
right
I would
ahead.
love to have the discussion with the brothers so we can get some better understanding. Tap in, brother. Brother, game related. He said, Lumumba, curious question. How do you
Very good.
define an ethnic group and do you see African American? Yes, African American is an ethnic group. I'm not sure if you see that comment, the last comment.
Right. Yeah, I see that. I see the comment. Right. Yeah. So, curious question: how do you define an ethnic group, and do you see African Americans as an ethnic group? Absolutely, African Americans are an ethnic group, just as Afro Jamaicans are an ethnic group, Afro Haitians are an ethnic group, right? Afro Bahamians are an ethnic group, Afro Cubans are an ethnic group, Afro Brazilians are an ethnic group, and typically most um, scholars, colleagues, I was actually trying to look this up because I talked about this in my dissertation, define an ethnic group by culture, um, right? So, additionally. Race, ethnic group, or more like. I'm trying to find term actually used. Wrote an article about this, and I don't think I'm going to find it. So this sucks, right? Give me 1 second. Yeah, so ethnic group refers to a group of people sharing a common cultural language, ancestry, and traditions, while race is a social construct categorizing people based on perceived physical characteristics like skin color, primarily used to create social hierarchies. So ethnicity is about shared cultural identity, while race is about perceived physical traits. So I hope that answers your question, brother Kevin, aka Mr. K. Once again, family, links in the description. Link is in the chat. Tap in and be part of the conversation. You're watching LumumbaSpeaks.com and, of course, Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire and the home of African-centered news and information.
And
Here on YouTube.
what's sad about this whole topic was so I was doing more research. I was studying different other groups. So even the Arabs have Pan Arabism. Are you aware of that,
Right.
Brother Lumumba?
Yes, I am.
So it's like, why are we the only group that's fighting for us to unite to gain economic, political, and social and cultural power? Like I don't mind the critiques of Pan-Africanism, but when we just like willfully just bash them with misinformation, like it makes no sense. This is literally like one of the oldest ideologies we have as a people.
Well, yes, Pan Africanism is the oldest diasporan political ideology amongst African people in the Western world. Absolutely,
Correct.
that is a fact.
So like, I don't really understand. Like, I understand some of the critiques, but you can easily tell when somebody's being genuine or just being completely just ignorant.
Right, absolutely. So
I
once
was
again,
really
fam,
hoping.
go
I
right
was
ahead.
just
I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say I was really hoping some of the brothers would tap in so we can have the discussion, but we know how that go.
Right. Well, once again, we got quite a few viewers on X, formerly known as Twitter. Once again, I shared the link in the comments, so I hope they could tap in and be part of the conversation. As I stated before, you do not have to cam up, and you can use a pseudonym to protect your identity. Looking to have a conversation. What is your beef with Pan Africanism?
So Brother Lumumba, what is your beef with Pan Africanism? Like, what's one of your biggest critiques of Pan Africanism?
Well, my
I'm
biggest
already
critique,
familiar with it, but I just want to
yeah,
know.
I think you've read some of my literature. My biggest critique of Pan Africanism is an ideology that has promised so much but delivered so little.
Can you disagree? But why do you think Pan Africanism has delivered so little? Because we
Yeah, well, yeah, I go into that in my master's thesis, not so innocent plug, where I discussed that Pan Africanism, unfortunately, 1960s movement onward, suffered a number of unfortunate setbacks. Matter of fact, let me pull this up. I could read it directly, so I don't have to try to remember what I said. See if this can open up here. Let's see here. All right, here we go. Um, yes, so yes, I say since the 1960s, Pan Africanism has steadily lost its currency amongst leaders and citizens in the African continent and throughout the African diaspora. During the past 50 years, Pan Africanism has suffered a series of seemingly insurmountable setbacks, including the assassinations of prominent activists and statesmen such as Patrice Lumumba, Steve Biko, Malcolm X, and Thomas Sankara, to name a few. Furthermore, the Pan-Africanism's flagship organization, the African Union, has had its fair share of challenges and critiques, leading its detractors to call it a toothless bulldog. Additionally, the growing disillusionment amongst Africans in the continent and throughout the diaspora toward an ideology has promised so much, delivered so little, has caused Pan-Africanism to be seen as an antiquated model of resistance to global anti-blackness.
how do we fix the problem?
Whew. Yeah, well, I argue in my um, thesis that Pan-Africanists they have to start building institutions that address the issues our people face. For example, oftentimes we have platforms such as this. Someone's going to tell you go read XYZ book, and I even make the argument that many of our people aren't inherently Christian or Muslim, right? But they go to the church or the mosque. Why? Because there's an institution there that in some way, shape, or form may address the needs that the people are facing. They have a
These
food pantry,
material
they
needs.
may have a clothing drive, right? There may be a nursery, right? They say you don't have any food to feed your children. You could go hear a sermon and have a meal afterwards. So they're doing things, even though we may disagree with the theological frame of reference that they're using to address some of the issues our people face. So I make the argument that in order for Pan-Africanism to reassert itself as the vanguard of the movement against global blackness, Pan-Africanists must build institutions that address the material needs of African people, irrespective of where they are in the world.
And I agree with that. And I think most Pan Africans are aware of that, but it's actually accomplishing this, like building these institutions, which we both know requires a lot of capital. And I
Right.
think that becomes a problem sometimes. Like, for example, like we have a lot of Pan Africans in the continent of Africa too. Even me as a continental African, I'm starting to become more familiar with it, like seeing more Africans that are Pan Africans. But the problem is the capital. Like we don't have like the funds to build certain things, and the government or these African nations are not really aligned whatsoever with any of like the grassroots organizations. So it becomes a problem. It's a very complicated, multifaceted problem of how to do it. Because I'm pretty sure like most Pan Africans are familiar with some of the issues and the critiques that most Black people have about Pan Africanism, but it's just in order for us to be able to accomplish these objectives, we're gonna need a united front, and our people are gonna have to like invest into it also.
Right.
For example, imagine if a Pan African organization was able to raise however much Kamala raised within a day for her campaign. Imagine if it was able to raise that same amount of capital.
Right.
It would be, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh God, I'm a little conflicted.
Okay, I think this is a great comment from Kevin, aka Mr. K. He says, I think another problem that Pan Africanism has suffered is similar to Black nationalism, where the practitioners with different ideologies at times put their ideologies over the objective.
He has a point.
Absolutely.
Cannot disagree with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Once again, family, if you're watching LaMumbaspeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, and of course, in conjunction with Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African-centered news and information. If you're watching, make sure you hit the subscribe, the like button, and the notification bell for future videos, and make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment right below. Mr. Sandman, what's the word? Shout out to the 215 Philadelphia in the building, Broad Street Bully. You know what it is.
Philly.
Hey, what's going
You
on? How
got
y'all
my
doing?
man from the Illadelph and my man that used to dribble down the VA.
Yeah, I'll be out in
What's the
Philly,
word?
man. I'll be out in Philly. I'll be out in North Philly.
Oh,
Get my little
yeah?
cheesesteak.
Okay, yeah. I grew up out there, out North Philly.
Oh, y'all can hear the accent.
Yeah, it was fun out there. Growing up, just acting a fool. But times change, and you got people who are dependent on you. Got to take another step up. You know what I mean?
That part.
Yeah.
So what's
But
your opinion on the topic?
I particularly I'm not I don't have a beef with Pan-Africanism, but I do have a number of people in my family that are both pro Pan-African and anti Pan-African, and it's an interesting dichotomy. I even have like one aunt who named, now she had like 10 children, and she named every last one of her children after either a African country or African king or queen. So she's super Pan-African. And even when we were kids, me and my cousins, who are me and my first cousins, who are her children, she used to take us to, African centered like plays and movies and when we were children to entertain us. But the individuals in my family and just my other aunts or my other uncles who were in the same family, the ones that are more anti-African, Pan-African, are more like Christian based. My grandmother was a strict Catholic, and she raised her children. She sent her children to Catholic schools. So yeah, so the some of her children adopted that ideology of Christianity, and others, kind of went their own little way. So I think the biggest beef with Pan-Africanism that African Americans have in the United States is it goes against their religious beliefs, and they believe that it's associated with not being I don't know what to say. And not being accepted with European culture in America, in the United States. So yeah, it's just a interesting dichotomy, and I'll even ask some of my family members that might be against pro Pan Africanism. They'll even tell you that, hey, if we go to Africa or something like that, then they'll say that they only want us there so they could get something from us, you know. So because they
And
think that the money, the power of the American dollars is so powerful, and if black people associate with Africans, then they'll just use us for our material gain, you know.
Right. Well, I would say, as an African American who's been in Africa, I can state anecdotally that that is not true. That was not my experience.
see,
Yeah,
as a continental African, I have to be somewhat fair. That does happen in certain cases, but there's a reason why. Because like the American dollar is worth like quadruple more than African currencies. So it's also a poverty like factor or component towards it. It's not so. And then most Africans, I'm gonna be very honest. The everyday African is not very familiar with Pan Africanism and what it entails. Most of our curriculums in Africa are Eurocentric. So
Like here in
everything that's
America.
happening in the go ahead, brother Lumumba.
So, like here in America.
Exactly. I was just about to make that point. So most black people, they tend to like romanticize Africa and picture Africa to be just this super black nationalist, and it's like the same. I won't say the same, but the similar techniques that was being done to Africans in the diaspora was being done to Africans in the continent. Africans in the continent are not just in the continent, just chilling, having fun, and balling it up. And I think a lot of Africans have this perception that Africans was in the continent just chilling, while Africans in diaspora was being enslaved, and like no. So I
Right.
think we need more light about each other. We need more education about each other, and that's the problem. Most Africans in the diaspora don't really know not too much about Africa and the conditions in Africa, and it's basically likewise for Africans in the continent. They're not familiar with the struggles or the plight of Africans in the diaspora because of the
Yeah.
curriculums in the schools. Most of our people are super religious, whether it's Islam or Christianity. We have multiple factors for why things are the way they are. But
Yeah, I think that that's a great point. And LMA, we're going to get to you momentarily. And particularly when we talk about education, right? We know Dr. Carter G. Woodson, of course, creator of Black History Week, that later became Black History Month, wrote a seminal text almost 92 years ago titled The Miseducation of the Negro, right? He talks about how Black people here in America are being indoctrinated to actually pedestalize everyone else except for themselves and hate themselves. Where Brother Ngugi wa Thiong'o, he also wrote a book titled Decolonizing the African Mind, making the same claims as Dr. Carter G. Woodson, but stating that this was taking place on the African continent. So we're dealing with the same issues, irrespective of where we are in the world.
exactly.
Brother LMA.
Good afternoon, good evening, gentlemen. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, brother. Peace.
Okay.
How you doing? And it's crazy seeing both Dr. Lumumba and B. Klein in the same place at the same time, because for the longest time I thought y'all were just the same person with two different channels. So it's good to see you both. It's good to see you both at the same place at the same time. But yeah, you guys kind of hit on the points that I was going to hit. I guess the angle I can kind of hit it from is that I feel like, particularly, I'm Black American. My family came here on the, go back to, saying the slave ships. So I can definitely see from my point of view. I feel as if, particularly the FBA crowd, and I generally don't take them seriously. I think that now the ADOS I take a little bit more seriously, but the FBA I don't take them as serious. But I will say that it feels like there's unrealistic expectations about similar to what B. Klein said. There's unrealistic expectations. You think when you're gonna walk over there that it's gonna be like Wakanda and it's gonna be like this, every black, every African over there is just gonna have this hardcore anti-imperialistic, anti-white supremacist vibe to them. They're not, But the thing is, like, we have the same thing over here. So I'm like, why is it that you can, criticize the continental African because he's, whitewashed, but then the Black American over here gets a pass? Like, I think it's just unrealistic expectations, rather than realizing that there's just some people you can work with and some people you can't. Like, I'm in the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, And I see continental Africans all the time, and yeah, some of them on that coon train, but a lot of them aren't. So I just work with.
But
Oh
LMA, we
yeah,
don't use racial epithets.
Oh, sorry
that's
about that.
right.
Yeah, yeah. They're on
Go
that.
right ahead.
They're on the train. They're in the sunken
Sell
place.
out.
But but a lot of them aren't. So you just work with those who you can work with, and you just say, forget the rest. And I wish that more Black Americans here would, accept that and just roll with whoever you can roll with, right? And so if we're, and it makes sense, like, okay, if we're here in America, yes, we're going to be a little bit more Black American centric because we're here in America, right? But if I were to go to Cameroon, then I'm going to put the, my Black American, agenda, so to speak, on the back burner because, hey, I'm here. I'm in Cameroon. I'm helping the Cameroonians. If I'm in Nigeria, I'm helping Nigeria. If I'm in America, if I'm in Haiti, I'm helping Haiti. But if I'm in America, I'm expecting people to, rally behind us. So I think that, like I said, you have a couple of, you know, Africans that come over here, or I mean, just anybody, Africans, Jamaicans, Haitians, they come over here, and because their situation, there's like a difference between their situation where they're coming from, they come here, they look at us as lazy, not realizing that, yeah, we have it, we may have it substantially better, but it's not like we've always had it this good. You know what I'm saying? It's not like we've just been sitting on a bed of roses for like the last 500 years, the last 400 years since we've been here, you know? So
Correct.
I think that it's just unrealistic expectations from both sides. I think that if we can just focus on the goal of Pan-Africanism, working with whoever you can in whatever capacity you can. And if you can't work with them, just keep it cool, keep it, what's the one I'm looking for? Diplomatic, and just go your separate ways. But don't, let's say if you're a Black American here, African American here, and you have one bad experience with like a Ghanaian, you know what I'm saying? There's no reason to just paint all of continental Africa with the same brush. If you have one issue with one Haitian, there's no reason to write off the whole project just because you have one bad experience. You just work with who you can work with, and then you keep it moving. That's my.
And what's so sad about that? That's literally what Europeans do to Black people globally. They basically take the lowest essence of our culture and give it maximum exposure, and then basically paint the picture as if this is like the only type of Black person there is. And it's crazy because we're doing the same thing to each other. And this movement, this FBA movement, is so dangerous because there are some valid critiques. As somebody who was born in the United States, I lived in the United States, lived in Africa. I was in Africa during the whole Civil War. I understand both perspectives. Some of the critiques are valid, but it's his reasons behind them that are very flawed, and it's very just propaganda, and he's trying to push a certain rhetoric. For example, the whole fleeing thing, that is so ignorant. Black people
Yeah.
globally have been fleeing. I mean, it's literally like a human nature thing. Every human flees, like in the face of danger, like any type of like atrocity. Like so, like some of the rhetoric is just so dangerous because most of our people are really interested in learning about ourselves and trying to gain liberation. Like some of these FBA members, they really are truly like genuine, but they're just being indoctrinated basically and radicalized by Tariq for benefits. So it's like I wish we can really have like a genuine conversation to where we can really put out all the critiques we have of each other because some of these critiques are valid. Some Africans are very ignorant and disrespectful towards Africans in the diaspora. Some continental Africans do not even see Africans in the diaspora as Africans. But there's a reason why. It's not because of hate. It's because of ignorance, and this is the problem. Black like even with the whole sellout class, like Black people, like anywhere there's a Black population, there's a sellout class. The Black elites in the diaspora are selling out, and the Black elites in Africa are selling out. We're both like each group is facing very similar problems. Our problems are literally interconnected, but we
Right.
so focus on the symptoms of a problem instead of actually getting to the root cause of the problem. So we keep basically chasing our tails.
Very quickly, I want to chime in very quickly, Brother Kevin. I actually have the book right here, right?
That's
Relations between
Lumumba
Africans
Library
and
right
African
there.
Americans. I'm sorry.
That's Lumumba Library right there. He got
Yep.
everything.
We got the LL, right? And actually, I read this book about 12 years ago when I was doing an undergraduate research project. I got about 10 G's for that project, and it was on African American repatriation to Tanzania. where we were highlighting the life, legacy, and the work of Brother Pete O'Neill, who was, of course, one of the leaders of Black Panther Party in Kansas City. But yeah, absolutely, misconceptions, myths, and reality. So got the text right here. But once again, I think it's a good point. And this isn't just something that we find with Black people in the continent or in the diaspora. But anytime you have oppression, you have what? Perpetrators, collaborators, and victims. In any situation, Dr. Malefi K. Asante talked about this in the documentary film 500 Years Later. He talked about in Iraq, there were some Iraqis who collaborated with the Americans, right? If you talk about doing the German Jewish Holocaust, there were some Jewish people who collaborated with the Nazis, what was known as the Judenreich Council. Jewish scholars even came out and stated what? They stated that Nazis would not have been able to have rounded up the amount of Jewish people that they did and send them to concentration camps if it was not for the assistance of the Judenreich Council. So whenever there's oppression anywhere in the world, you're going to have three groups of people: perpetrators, collaborators, and of course, victims.
Right.
Absolutely. And just very quickly, Brother LMA, don't want to be too didactic, but we use the term African American here at Lumumba Speaks and Bequalon Network.
Right. I'll try to remember that next time.
Yes,
but
sir.
I believe I forgot, might have been Mr. Sam might have mentioned it. Like I said, we have these religious indoctrinations, and like I said, and not just religious doctrine, just indoctrination in general, and it kind of makes it very difficult to be in communion with people, when they have different, especially religious views, because like I said, that's just something that's so deep in the psyche of most African American people that they'll just reject it. I've know that probably a few of you heard this statement in a church. If you've gone to a Black church or whatever, the pastors say, I've heard this, that thank God for slavery, because if it wasn't for slavery, we would not be Christians or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Absolutely.
Yeah,
me too.
And if you've heard that, and like I said, if that doesn't
but
do something
that's
to
a
you,
major Black conservative talking point.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And like I said, if that sits right with you, then like I said, Pan-Africanism is the least of our problems. If you got Black people,
right,
Africans around us, and they're okay with that, our problems is much deeper than getting to a point of Pan-Africanism.
And it's part of the other issue is oftentimes we find brothers and sisters, particularly old people in the community. I wouldn't call them elders, but old people. Their position is, if it ain't got nothing to do with Jesus, then I don't want to hear it.
Exactly.
Oh, Allah.
Yeah.
Or Allah.
Yeah, or Allah. Yeah, or Allah, or Moses. We got the
right.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
I like to call them I call them the purple Power Rangers on the corner. You know what I'm saying?
We don't want no smoke, yeah. We don't want no smoke, yeah. They're gonna go crazy.
Yeah. Oh God, man. But anyway, but yeah, like I said, I definitely, like I said, being in this area, like I said, and I mentioned this before in a different panel, years ago, that I think one of the biggest issues that African Americans have is that our politics, especially like when it comes to the friction that immigrant Africans or other Africans from the diaspora come to America, the friction between African Americans and the African diaspora is that I feel as if like African Americans, we don't have a political network. We don't have a social political network or political institutions and infrastructure to absorb these Africans when they come in. You know what I'm saying? And I think that if we had that, you know what I'm saying? Because like I said, if you you just get here to the country, you just get here to America, and you're and you're someone from the diaspora, if there was like and I've seen this before. I've seen like there was TikTok of this one. She's a Black British girl, and she came from the UK, and then she ended up somewhere in the South or whatever. She's Christian, so she ended up connecting with this Black Christian church somewhere in the South or whatever. And she's making TikToks, and she's just saying how she loved it because it was like I said, there was a system, an institution that she was able to connect to that embraced her, and now that's one less. We're probably never going to see her getting online talk about how bad Black Americans are and how lazy and all this other stuff. Because why? Because she came to America, she got absorbed and embraced by, an institution that, is, for better or worse, catered to black, to the African American cause, the black church, for better or worse, whatever. So that's what we need. But then, like I said, you have a lot of young, uh, young kids who come to the country, and then they go to these inner city schools, and then they end up getting bullied or, made fun of and all this other stuff. So then when they grow up, you know what I'm saying? Now they're just saying that, oh, these blacks, these are lazy, they're shiftless and all this other stuff. And it's just like, you know, then they come across me. I'm like, what did I do to you? But, so I think for us, like I said, Black American, we just need an institution, and we really need to absorb these guys, because then we can have them fighting for us as opposed to coming over here and then just, talking bad about us. So I think that we just need something like that. I mean, I think the Black church example is a great example. Obviously, I'm not part of any type of Abrahamic religion, and it kind of sucks, but it's good, and it's good in the sense of having a system to absorb these people, get them squared away. Because, like I said, if you're gonna come over here and you're gonna look like me, you need to act like me. You need to act in our, we need to have a shared interest when they come over here, and so at least that way we're all working in the same direction.
I would push back a little bit, but LMA, I wouldn't say that a person needs to act like me, right? The argument I would make is the best way. So once we see a comment here directed towards LMA, and I'll let you respond to that comment, but LMA, in a minute. The best way to proselytize is to treat a person's needs as holy. If you want someone to actually be on the team, address their person. I'll give you an example. About 12 years ago, I was dating a sister from South Sudan, and she talked me into going to a wedding in Pittsburgh. So we drove all the way to Pittsburgh for this wedding, and it was at a white church, a white mega church in the Pittsburgh area. So I'm like, damn, how they get all these black folk from the continent? They got them hook, line, and sinker, right? I go to the bathroom. They had a whole table regarding all of the services they provided the African immigrant community. So the issue is treating people's needs as holy, right? You could be as didactic as you want. If you aren't able to address people's needs, they're going to go and listen to the person who's able to, provide some comfort.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Address people's needs in the position we currently in.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what.
Go ahead, Bevan.
I
was just saying, how can we meet all of our people's material needs when we're currently in the position we are politically, economically? So,
right. That is the challenge, right? And one of the ways we could do that is by what is known as SUSU, right? Pulling our resources together, practicing the.
I just got some money from SUSU.
Ujamaa, right? Cooperative economics. I've been able to, for example, we knew that miseducation was an issue in the greater Dayton area for Black children. So what did we do? We created a Juma Mosi Shule with the West Dayton Youth Task Force. You come in, drop the child off, Saturday morning, 7:30, they're going to get breakfast. They're going to receive curriculum, support and development on English, reading, writing, arithmetic. They're going to learn some African history, learn chess, and then they're going to leave with lunch. And we was able to do that by pulling our resources together. So what did that mean? That meant that I provided $10 a week. Right, instead of buying that bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos, which I love, by the way, right, my guilty pleasure, I put 2 bags of the family size. I put that $10 towards the West Dayton Youth Task Force and the Juma Mosi Shule. These things are practical, can practically be done. It doesn't take a lot of money. But LMA, I want you to address this comment here. Someone states LMA has never been to Africa or Harlem. He's a fraud. But once again, I'm going to let you address that, brother LMA. But we do not, here at Lumumba Speaks to Be Line Network, you don't attack the person, you attack the argument. So just want to let you know, CAMA, you attack the argument, not the person. Go right ahead, brother LMA.
I would have to understand what he meant. I mean, what in the context of that? I mean, never been to Harlem, never been to. Well, I think I've been to Harlem technically, but I've never been to Africa. You're correct. But I've dealt with people coming from the continent coming here. So I'm not quite sure what he means. I'm not too concerned about it. But I did want to say I mean, you were pushing back. I kind of felt like we were kind of in agreement. I didn't have a disagreement with what you said. Like
Okay.
I word the way I worded it made it kind of seem like I was saying something else. But I was basically getting at that we just need to have some type of institutions that can absorb them, meet their needs, you know, take care of them. Maybe I worded it wrong, but I don't disagree with what you were saying.
Okay.
And
Very good.
Yeah, and the point where I was saying, like, if you're gonna be around us, you need to act like us. But basically, when you come here, we need to work together. That's what I meant. So
Okay. Very good.
and well, I don't. One of my favorite movies, and I know all movies have a theatrical spin to it, but one of my favorite movies was Amistad. And one of the scenes in that movie, Amistad, was during the process when they were going through the judicial process of determining whether or not they should be freed from their captors who illegally enslaved them on their slave boats. One of the things that the lawyer that was representing them said to the leader, who was the spokesman for those, was this word or this concept called possibility, or and that really opened.
You're breaking up on us, brother Sam, man. You're breaking up on us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're much
Is it
clearer now,
still real
though.
bad now?
Just the background, but we can hear you clearly. Just the background.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm hearing some ash too, but yeah, I'm not home. But one of the things that he said is this concept of possibility or maybe. But and then the response of the African who was a representation for the rest of his captivated or the rest of his people that were bonded, that were on trial for killing his captors, were the concept of he said that it's either yes or it's no. They don't understand the concept, or in their 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 culture, the concept of maybe possibility isn't a part of their language system. It's either yes or no, right or wrong. So I look at that and look at our situation here as African Americans. We either are all the way in or we're all the way out. So we're not going to open our mind to the concept of Pan African if we've completely accepted like religious beliefs, like Christianity or Catholicism or Islam. And I think it's just
Well,
about that.
I actually would disagree with that, right? There are numerous Pan-Africanists who are varying racial backgrounds. Malcolm X was a Muslim. Um, Carlos Cook was an atheist. Marcus Garvey was a Christian. So actually, I would argue. I mean, we talk about Bishop Henry Manil Turner. Um, we tend to find that people who are Pan-Africanists, their religious beliefs don't prohibit them or hinder them from engaging in Pan-Africanist activism.
Well, those are unique cases because those people were highly educated in what Pan Africanism is. And as a matter of fact, before I looked up the definition, I didn't quite understand it either. But basically, the concept or the definition of Pan Africanism will be an individual who believes in the unification and the uplifting of of Black people of African descent in general. So if you have like a whole group of Africans or African Americans in the United States that have been, so to speak, who have been assimilated to American culture and they have accepted that as who they are, just the idea of calling them an African, they would take umbrage with it.
Okay.
So
Yeah, but I don't think that's a religious issue.
no, I'm not saying it's a particular religious issue. I'm saying a religion is basically a culture. A religion is a way of life. You know, you can have it doesn't have to be based on any theological ideology. A religion is a culture. Therefore, if they have accepted an American religion that is based on um, Abrahamic religious systems, then that's what they're going to base their life they base their life uh, narrative. And even in the Holy Bible or the Christian Bible, there's no mention of the word religion because
Well, I mean, the Bible isn't holy to us, so right. Um, yeah. But very quickly, Peaky states anytime African Americans want to come together is an issue. Definitely hope you could tap in and unpack what do you mean by that, and why do you believe that there are people who take umbrage, particularly from a Pan Africanist frame of reference, with African Americans coming together. So tap in. The link is in the description. I will put the link in the chat uh, below E Short ENT's comment, and would love to hear from you regarding why you've made that declaration. All right. Any thoughts, B. Quillan?
Oh no, I'm just listening. But that comment was
Okay.
very that comment was very interesting.
Right.
I
So
would
yeah,
love
we
to
hope
hear
you
that.
could tap
Thank you.
in once again, and you do not have to cam up to be part of the conversation, and you do not have to use your actual name. You can use a pseudonym, but want to hear from you and get your thoughts regarding this situation and why you believe that whenever African Americans seek to come together, it is an issue. And I would make the presumption, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that is an issue from a Pan Africanist frame of reference. So once again, if you can tap in, be part of the conversation, you're more than welcome. More than I hope you're more than willing to do so. Once again, family, you're watching, of course, LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe you can gain a competitive advantage for always betting on Black, and of course, Beacon Network, the Pan African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African-centered news and information. You're watching here on YouTube. Make sure you hit the thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment, and share to help grow the channel.
You know what's so sad? Most of our people really do not realize that we're in a race war.
Right. Well,
And that
very quickly, be Kalon.
Mhm.
Appreciate you tapping in, Big Peaky. I need you to cam up in queue just to make sure you're not trolling. Then I will bring you into the live, and you can turn your camera off. Got you. You can turn your camera off, and I'm gonna bring you into the live. Okay. Go ahead, brother. Be Kalon. Then we'll pass it to Peaky.
Yeah, I don't think most of our people realize that we're in a race war. That another group controls all of our life-sustaining institutions. That is literally slavery. I don't think how people realize how like what's actually going on. We've been in a race war for literally centuries now.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You go ahead, sister.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go
Can
ahead,
you
sir.
hear me?
Yes.
No, I
Yes.
just.
We hear you just fine.
Oh, good. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to say, I just felt like anytime African Americans try to come together and form our own little, group, or something just for us, it's always some type of problem with that. That's just my opinion.
So let me ask you this question: when you say it's an issue, if there's a problem, who do you believe has a problem with that?
Oh, it's always some type of issue. I can't think of one specifically right now, but you can just see the situation we have with Fat Joe mad at the FBA. He doesn't want African Americans to come together, and that's just maybe just him.
Well, very quickly,
Hmm.
I saw the comments he made, but he didn't say anything regarding being opposed to African Americans working together to build social, political, and
But
economic power.
is isn't the group African American group?
I'm sorry.
I think the group is the foundation of African Americans or
FBA
something to do with
Foundation of Black American Group. Yes, so
right.
but
So
the comments he made weren't based on taking umbrage with the black people coming together. The comments he made, and this is just what I saw from what he said, he took issue with the level of vitriol and xenophobia in the movement towards non-black people, particularly non-black people of color, and some of the farcical
yeah,
ahistorical
but
statements made in the documentary regarding the history of hip hop.
I agree with you. That could be true. But what I feel for myself right here is being an African American, being born here, is each and every time we try to assimilate something for ourselves, other groups feel that they have the right to just come in. And that's has been going on for years and for centuries. It's almost like they're almost like kind of used to us having a slave mentality. We can't have anything for ourselves at
Okay.
all.
Now, when you say other groups, could you provide some examples of those groups?
Uh, can I pry? Can I yeah, you can. It's all
No,
other
no. And,
groups.
and here's the thing: I'm not
It's
trying to.
it's really all other groups because just like you hear the argument on TikTok and on what is it, YouTube, African Americans don't have any culture. It's all other groups.
Right, but
It's all
the only
other
thing
groups that
is
come.
for the conversation, and Brother B. Klein can speak to this, but a Sandman can as well. When a person makes a claim, I have no problem with a person making a claim, but I need you to be able to substantiate it by providing actual examples. So
Right.
what I'm
Okay.
gonna do, hold on real quick. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask Brother Sandman and Brother B. Klein, can you all think of a time in history where African Americans sought to do for themselves, organize for themselves, and other groups of people tried to what? Join an organization or movement that Black people already had established.
Europeans.
Well, can you provide a specific example?
Uh, hmm. Black Wall Street. I mean, they didn't really join the organization. I say the NAACP.
Well, the NAACP was created by white folks, and they just allowed
I
some
can't
Black
really.
people to be a
But
part
it
of
was
these
supposed
groups.
to be. It was supposed to be for African Americans, but yeah,
But it
you're
was
right.
created by them. So I would say this: well, I wouldn't argue that we find other groups trying to join. What I would argue is we find other groups historically seeking to destroy what Black people have created and built, rather than trying to join or integrate into what Black organizations. That's what I
I
would. That's the argument I would make that I think holds more water historically.
I find
Well, I would
that
agree with that.
African Americans tend to create a lot of things that Europeans tend to want to use or manipulate that creation for monetary gain, i.e., hip hop or other
Yeah.
entertainment
Black Lives
industries
Matter.
that we
Absolutely.
That's a
that we
good example.
create.
I got
Hmm.
you, sis.
They turn it into like a capitalistic uh, um, uh, manipulation or or monetary gain for themselves.
Right.
So yeah, they'll latch on not because they necessarily want to be a part of it. They just want to take advantage.
But, right. So we're talking about expedient, this concept of the expedient white liberal. Great point, Brother Sandman. Appreciate you backing up, Sister Peaky. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. So let me ask you this question,
Yeah.
sister. Well, for one, what part of where are you calling from?
I'm in New York.
Okay, shout out to the five boroughs. I take it the city.
Yeah, the five boroughs. Right now, I'm in Brooklyn. Yes.
Okay, shout out to the BK.
Okay,
All right,
that
no
part.
doubt, no doubt. So let me ask you this question. Uh, and this is a presumption. You may not have a beef, but if you have a beef with Pan Africanism, what is your beef?
I don't really have a beef with Pan Africanism, but what I do think as African American, I do have a grandfather that is from Antigua, but I'm African American. But I feel
Mhm.
like we have so much turmoil going on amongst the African Americans that we need to focus on ourselves first before we can start grouping with everybody else. That's just how I feel.
Mm.
But I don't really have a problem with the Pan Africanism.
Now,
Hey,
when you say
sis, you know what's
grouping,
wait,
what do you
hold on,
mean
because
by?
I want to make a
I'm
quick
sorry. Go
little
right ahead,
point.
Brother B. Quillan. I
Yeah,
apologize.
you know what's so crazy, sis? She will not even qualify as an FBA.
Mm, why?
That's
Because
the
I have a
crazy part.
grandfather.
Yeah,
Because my grandfather's from Antigua.
yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, my mother's father. Well, it is
yeah.
what it is.
Like, and that's the problem with like. So some of the critiques of the FBA movement, I said this earlier in the conversation. Some of the critiques are valid, but it's like
But
the
my
reason.
mother, both of my parents, and I said both of my parents are American.
Yeah, but they say
Right.
your whole genealogy
Lineage.
has, yeah,
Yeah.
Or
lineage
your
has
whole
to
Your
be,
lineage.
genealogy. Yeah.
yeah, has to
Okay.
be from America, and it can't be from the Caribbeans or anywhere else. And I'm like, oh,
And
okay.
and I can understand why they would feel like that.
But that's very difficult to do because so a lot of people are not really familiar with the domestic slave trade. So it's very difficult to try to put any like the history. America history is very complicated. So
Yeah.
some of these criteria that they have is very hard to actually meet it. most of the people in the FBA movement cannot actually meet him, but they're just not familiar with the history
Right.
because Caribbean's been all over America.
That's true.
This is very true, very true. And what tends to happen by the time someone is second generation, they've been absorbed into the African American culture, and you wouldn't know that they were from somewhere else unless they told you.
Yeah.
So that's an issue as well. But I definitely appreciate you tapping in, sister. Not ducking the smoke. Like we want to have educated, intellectually stimulating conversations where we can actually address issues and have solutions that are rooted in the facts.
Yeah,
Right.
solutions.
And so part of the issue that we tend to find, and plus, of course, Brother B. Quan can speak to this, is, and of course I can speak to this as well, is that when we have conversations with people regarding critiques of Pan-Africanism or just issues in general regarding Black history, African history, etc., there tends to be a lot of misinformation being pushed, right? And we've done a number of shows on those issues to try to correct some of that misinformation. And why this is important is because, for a number of reasons. One, we understand that the enemies of African people, enemies of Black people, have for their own ideological purposes sought to falsify our history.
Of course.
To promote their agenda, right? So then we, of course, don't do ourselves any favors when we do the same thing. Right. One of the biggest critiques of Black people and even Black studies, right, as a byproduct of Black people, is that we didn't have any actual history or culture, so we go around making things up.
And that is the reason why some Africans on the continent, on the Caribbean, spew the whole rhetoric, oh, Black Americans don't have culture. It's ignorance.
Right. And this is why you see the LL.
Yeah, that part annoys me so much.
Yeah. And so what happens is oftentimes when we're having these conversations, Brother B. Line can speak to this, Brother Sandman can speak to this, I would grab the literature from behind me and read verbatim, right, to try to disabuse people of a lot of the misinformation that, of course, we know we've been indoctrinated with globally regarding who we are and what we've accomplished as a people.
And also, as a continental African, sis, like I understand a lot of the frustrations because, like, some of the critiques I keep repeating are valid, but it's because of ignorance. So I do have some family members who do make ignorant comments, and I do have some African American family members who also make ignorant comments. So this, like, it goes both ways. It's bi-directional.
Yeah.
But the question I have for you, because I do understand Black Americans, gatekeep
African Americans.
See, I've been checked so much for using the term African American that I've been like, they've converted me to saying Black American. I was actually sad, but yeah, African American. So I do agree with African Americans actually gatekeep. I agree with that. Like every ethnic group gatekeeps. But the problem is, do you actually believe that African Americans will be able to gain economic, political, social, and cultural power by just only working amongst African Americans when we live in a global market now?
We did before. We did before. They burnt all our towns down. We were able to do it before. We had it happening before.
Can I get an example when we was living in a global market and African Americans was able to gain economic, political?
Well, wasn't the first president Black? We had not Obama. Wasn't.
No.
Yeah, but Obama was not the first Black president, though.
No,
we had a Black
ma'am. That's TikTok. Hold on, very quickly, ma'am. That is misinformation. Who you're speaking to was the person who was the first head of the Continental Congress, which predated the actual
presidency or something.
Presidency. But also, you have to understand two things. When we talk about social, political, and economic power, one person living in public housing on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. does not represent social, political, and economic power for the masses of our people. The second issue is the claim of the first head president of the Continental Congress being a person who was Black is nebulous in nature, right? There is a belief that this was a person who may have been a octoroon, right? 1/8 Black and was able to pass as white. This is the belief, but there's no evidence to substantiate that.
Okay.
Yes.
I understand. I always thought that was a true something, but I guess I have to look into it.
And oftentimes on social media, what happens is people will provide a picture of a brother who was a senator in Liberia, right? As the actual picture of the individual who was the first head of the Continental Congress in the United States. So once again, we have a lot of misinformation.
And that's why I said it's so dangerous, because this sister is actually, I can just tell from her speaking, she's genuine. And she actually wants to learn and help her people. But It's the misinformation that's actually just causing more division. Is actually moving us further away from like the goalposts, and we don't even realize it.
No, I'm
So
Wait,
always
we're talking
open
about John
to
Hanson.
learn. I'm always open to learn and listen
Can
because that's
someone give me an example of how engaging in Pan-Africanism would preclude us or prevent us from working with each other here in America?
Yeah, that's a great question. I hear that all the time, but I've never heard anyone provide an answer. Yeah. Because I mean, that is a great question. Because that's typically what's stated that, oh, if I'm a Pan Africanist, I can't work with my own people. That, of course, is adverse to the facts. Because
so to be
Pan Africanism is about what? Addressing, fighting anti-Black racism wherever you are in the world.
mm-hmm.
Right? So, you're from Brooklyn. What neighborhood you from in Brooklyn, sister?
Canarsie.
Canarsie. Okay, I know about Canarsie. Very good.
Mhm.
Wild thing is they named that neighborhood after the Indians that they slaughtered. But that's a conversation for another day. Right? So that means you do the work of helping invade and foment Black empowerment in Canarsie.
I try, but I'm not on the soapbox as much because some people is not listening.
Now, and the thing is, you don't have to be in the soapbox. The most effective Black activists are people who do the work, not the talk.
Right.
I state this, and Brother Bequeline can speak to it. Is I've told a lot of people, I said, you're like Jim Lampley, Larry Merchant. You just talk a good fight.
No action behind it. Yeah.
They just talk a good fight. It's what Dr. Amos Wilson, peace be upon him, stated is what pseudo-nationalism.
But I had a slight question. Moving forward towards change, what do you think would make it? What is it we need to bring change to actually have
I
some
think,
changes?
and I hope everyone could chime in regarding this question. Appreciate you asking the question, sister. And I've been rather consistent with my declaration of what we need to do to bring about the change that we want, and that is we have to build institutions to serve the needs of our people.
See, and that is the problem. Like that is the solution, but the problem with that is how do we actually how do we actually implement that and actually make it a reality? Because we're going against $1 trillion corporations. We're going against like some of the top nations in the globe right now that have the top military. So this is the issue that we're facing. So people
so
need some type
I will share an example. I was a member of an organization, grassroots Pan-African organization, the Coalition of African Unity. Our charter was the same charter as Malcolm X's charter for the Organization of African American Unity. And we were able to engage in some substantial actions to help improve the community. We did neighborhood cleanups. We of course were members of the West Dayton Youth Task Force. We even had a initiative where we were focusing on political education for Black people. We even had a initiative where we focused on professional development for our brothers and sisters. Right. So we said we know that a major problem is what financial, socioeconomic, upward mobility. So we actually said these are issues that we're going to address in our community because these are tangible issues, tangible actions that we can engage in to help our people better their lives.
Yeah.
Speaking class, shut the front door. Okay, literally.
Toastmasters.
Yeah, look, I borrowed from them and said, just bring it on home, right? And we did all of this, right? And all we had was every member had to donate $10 a week. $10 a week.
Yeah, that's not a lot. That's
not
fair.
a lot. And as a result, we started gaining more members. We had about 10 G's in the bank in like 2 months.
Wow.
I told you Ujamaa is real. And then we was able to then put on events in the community, right? And help provide the organization with more visibility. It is not difficult. The issue is the commitment. Long term, not short term. We know a lot of our people, we have this emotional fervor and our commitment is ephemeral, right?
I agree.
So we have to make sure we're doing this for the long haul.
I agree.
So basically, all the solutions you just gave is the same solutions that our ancestors have been given.
Yeah, it's not difficult at all.
But do you think that we need to be integrated?
I'm sorry,
separate ourselves? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, you broke
I'm
up a little
sorry.
bit, sis.
You
No,
broke
I'm
up.
sorry. I was saying, do you think we oh, do separate ourselves or
Well, it's not possible to separate
presence,
one.
or
It's
should
not
we,
possible to separate oneself.
stay
We live in a not only a global society but also a global economy. So that's not realistic. What we
right?
can do if we have social, political, and economic power is create neighborhoods that are ethnic enclaves. Right? We typically have ethnic
Right.
enclaves. Like we talk about, well, formerly Harlem. We know the gentrifying in Harlem. We could talk about the South Bronx. We could talk about the South Side of Chicago. We could talk about, of course, South Central LA. These are neighborhoods that we could argue are close to being ethnic enclaves, right? However, we don't control the politics and economics of those communities, so therefore they're really more so internal colonies rather than enclaves, right?
Okay.
So how do we control the
Change
politics
that.
and economics of the community, right?
Hmm.
It isn't by just voting, right? How do we
No.
control the politics is by educating our own brothers and sisters, particularly children, and then funding and running our own candidates for public office.
Yeah, and I agree with
You talking
everything you
about
just said.
voting?
Mhm.
Sorry to cut you. I was just thinking that would be voting every 2 years for like our Senate and Congress and all of that, right?
No,
No.
I'm talking about based on what we have because for example, in the Jewish community, and I'm in Ohio, right?
Good,
Okay.
There
good.
is a Jewish educational institution in every major metropolitan area in Ohio. There's one in Cincinnati, there's one in Dayton, there's one in Toledo, there's one in Cleveland, there's one in Columbus, there's one in Akron, in the
Mm.
Akron Canton area, right? They educate their people, they educate the children to work in the best interest of their people, ethnocentrism, right? So then
Mm.
they fund these individuals, groom them to run for political office. So then when they get into political office, they do the work for their community and not for a particular political party.
Okay, makes sense.
But they have a slight advantage than we do though. It's hard to compare the Jews to like black people.
I would
Well,
agree
as
with
a
that
Jewish
too.
people, a lot of people do that.
I know, but Jewish people, like we know they have somewhat political power, and they have Israel now. So it's a little bit it's a little bit different than black people. Like our situation is similar to other groups in some ways, but it's also unique. Like even our history, because of like what we've been through, and it's like how, for example, like cause like the sister was saying earlier, they did try to build in America, and we knew, and we all know what happened. And I'm not saying that like we should be defeaters because of the history or because of the past, but we do have to keep that in mind while we operating and trying to create a solution for the
No,
future.
I understand that. I'm just simply talking about the model,
Oh,
right?
okay, yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Amos Wilson talks about this.
Hmm.
We educate our youth, we have them run for political office, and then we fund their campaigns so they can't be co-opted by the powers that be.
Hmm.
That's all I'm saying. That would be a solution to gaining social, political, and economic power.
So do you believe this system can ever be reformed? Because I personally believe that we need to like create our own systems,
I
and that's
do
the only
too.
way we'll be able to
Be
actually,
free.
yeah, because
Right.
these systems are literally modeled and created from a certain paradigm, and it's literally like a structure for us to be in the exact position we are currently. Like most of the
Right.
problems that black people face in America, the root cause always goes back to the same thing: the system of white anti-black racism.
Right.
Yeah, supremacy and all of
And
that.
very quickly, I'm glad that Brother B. Quillan caught himself and said anti-black racism, not white
Yeah,
supremacy, because we know that anti-black racism predates white supremacy.
I almost said
It
it too.
predates
Right.
white hegemony in the world, and we actually
That's
find
true.
that non-black people of color were the progenitors of anti-black racism.
Facts.
And this goes back to, of course, antiquity. We're talking about in the classical era, we find anti-blackness.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So
the
I
reason
think
why
that's the
this is important because we don't need to just be fixated on them folks all the time,
yeah.
No.
right?
But I do believe that black people, we do need to create our own systems and have strong nations because like for multiple reasons. For example, even like the kids, like being a young black boy or girl is a certain pride you have when you know that you can brag about your nation. You have like the whole like the whole patriotic pride. You need that, and I think building our own systems, institutions to meet our people's material needs is very very important. going ahead because I don't really believe we can ever be able to reform the system or elevate as a collective in the system. I don't ever see that happening, especially in these Western systems.
Uh-uh.
Mhm. But sis, do you have any like critiques about Pan Africanism, or do you have any critiques about like the actual ideology? Because the ideology basically just teaches that anywhere, like anywhere anybody of African descent is in the globe. So whether you're in Africa in the continent or, or throughout the diaspora, any anti-black racism that you face is connected to a system of white supremacy, and that we should all, no matter where you are in the world, we should link up together, build together to create economic, political, social, and cultural power. And the reason why is because we live in a global, like a global system of anti-black racism, and they're working
Uh-huh.
as a team. So Europeans, so Americans, they work with Europeans. Like even though they might fight and go to war, but like when it comes to oppressing us and keeping us in the position we currently in, they always unite to do so.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do agree we should all come together, but look how long we've been saying that. That's the only reason why I think about working first with a small group of just African Americans and then branching out because it's just taking
Hmm.
too long for us to come together. We all have the same problem all over the globe, but we are still fighting against each other. We have the colorism problems, the tribalism problems. Like it's just ridiculous to me.
Hmm.
So I do
And
think we should all come together, but how? How are we gonna do that?
and that was the question I was trying to stress to Dr. Lumumba. Also, it was like I do know the solutions, but it's like how do we implement the solutions so they can be effective and not just
Right.
speaking on like what we need to do. But yeah, I
How
do
do
agree
we
that we need to do both.
start it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I agree. I agree that we need to do both, but we also have to remember the reason why Pan Africanism hasn't officially been established yet is because of our enemies. Like if you look throughout the history, they've been killing black leaders throughout the globe. Whether it's America, Africa, the Caribbean, they've been killing all of our leaders that are trying to actually implement and actually
Anybody
right,
anybody trying to bring us together, they take them out.
right. So
Anybody.
But I do agree with you to a certain extent because I do believe that we need to do both. We need to work where we at and also work think globally because we're living
Well,
in it like we have to think globally, or else we're gonna be
I
left.
mean, I feel like we are one people out of many, like, the Jamaican saying, out of many, we are one. So I do feel like we are all one people, but just some of us have different cultures, different customs, different things, but we are still all one people. We have
Mhm.
so much in common, more in common than we have not in common, you know?
Exactly. I was just about to
So
make that point.
yeah, that's where I come together at, that we have more in common than we don't. But the sad thing is that, some of us, not all, some people are, ignorant. So, you
Mhm.
know, when you
And there's
when
a
you have
reason.
it,
And there's a reason why they're ignorant too, though. Because like one of the biggest mistakes we allowed was allowing our enemies to educate our kids. So now we're
well, you
dealing
know
with like
what
the
they
direct consequence of that.
well, history is you can hear it right there. History. It's his
Exactly.
story. It's
That
not our
part.
story. So,
That part. And it's
we
crazy because
learning.
you said what?
I said we learning.
Exactly. And it's like it's even more crazy because like the more you study history, you start realizing that we're repeating the same mistakes and all these discussions we having in the in modern times. All of our ancestors was having these same discussions back in the days. But like even the whole go back to Africa, they was having the same discussions. Some of us wanted to go, some of us didn't want to go. Africans like it's a very complicated history. So it's like we do have to think like on a macro level and try not to be like emotional because I repeat, there's some Africans who are very disrespectful. I'm not even gonna lie because they ignorant, and some of them are really like so. We also have to realize in Africa, you also have different classes in Africa, just like America. So you have some certain Africans who all come in America and they can't even relate to the regular Africa that's on the continent because they're from a certain class. So when they do come to America, it's gonna be very hard for them to even be able to relate to you know, the everyday African American. So it's like it's multiple components and factors to this problem. But people try to simplify it and just generalize, and that's when it becomes problematic because you're not helping nobody.
Yeah, no, it's not just a small little thing that we can just, just
Ignore.
yeah, it's not like that. It's something that we all need to sit down and talk about and face. But you know what I noticed is that when I come on certain different like apps or TikTok or whatever, and I hear black people talking, it seems like it's a thing against amongst each other, against each other. Like one group is better than the other. Like one group wants to say our suffering is worse than the other, or we're better
Mm-hmm.
black people than that black person. Like it just gets
You're
on my
talking about
nerves.
the oppression Olympics. Yes.
Yeah, and that when and sometimes like when I'm talking and I get on those things, that I could get ignorant too, even though I don't really feel like that. I have to pull myself out because if you're somebody speaking crazy to you,
Yeah.
you might lose yourself and speak ignorant back with them. But I really don't feel like that. I really feel like we all are fighting the same freaking enemy, and we need to come together because we are stronger together. And they actually know this. So if we come together, we would. It's nothing we can't do. If they can keep us fighting against, oh, you're black from Barbados, you're from Jamaica, you're from this part of Africa, we always gonna be running around in circles
Mm-hmm.
until we can get over that.
And and what Tariq does is he takes that anger and then he weaponizes that anger and to make money off of it. That's why I say Tariq is dangerous because he knows what he's doing. Like for example, um, I'm a continental African and you're an African American, and right now we're having a very effective conversation. You know why? Because we both,
Absolutely.
because we're both educated and we're able to like actually put the emotions aside. But if if you was having a conversation with one of my, I'm be honest, if you was having a conversation with like an ignorant African and some it go completely
Ignorant
left.
African Americans too.
Yeah,
Because
it go
I've
completely
heard them
left.
talk crazy. From my perspective as an African American and being around other African Americans, I've heard them say crazy stuff. And
Hmm.
you have to let them know, because I don't know. I always grew up with my family saying, okay, we're from Africa, so like that kind of way. So I was always taught to love or to love my people, basically.
Exactly. So it's like you have a different perspective on things. Even though it might trigger you sometimes, because I've seen some comments and I might get, and I gotta catch myself.
Me
He's just
too.
ignorant. He's just ignorant.
Especially when they say like, because I know a lot of African Americans say ignorant things about Africans, and I have no part in that. But when I hear some Africans say, "Oh, African Americans don't have culture," that part really, really bothers me because I'm like, we may have lost a lot of our culture, but over here we created our own,
And
and we
what's also ignorant is African Americans retained a lot of West African traditions, but people don't even know. I so a lot of
yeah.
I want a lot of Africans in diaspora to realize that a lot of Africans in the continent, and I'm not gonna say a lot, but most of us are ignorant. For example,
No, don't.
uh,
Well,
no, 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 no,
I was
no.
gonna say, don't
No,
say that.
no, 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 no. We're ignorant to the history, to African history. Just like Black
Okay.
Americans, Jamaicans, we're all ignorant
African
to the history.
Americans.
Oh yeah, African Americans. Yeah, because like I'm starting to realize that a lot of like Africans in the diaspora they assume that continental Africans know everything about African history, not knowing that it's actually 54 countries. Like they're not realizing
Right.
how complicated it is. So it's like in our schools, we're not being taught about African history. For example, I went to school in Africa. I went to like an Arabized Africa, like school in Africa, and they were teaching about nothing about African history. It's more about like Islam, and so people need to realize
Wow.
this: like the curriculums in Africa is not African centered. It's going to be very rare for you to find an actual
But
college or university in Africa that's African centered.
Well,
I seen
McCary
some.
University has a good reputation.
And where's
What's
that?
what's the name of the
Where's that
university?
located?
McCary University.
And where's that located?
It's in Uganda.
Oh, Uganda.
Uganda.
Okay, East
Yeah.
Africa. Yeah, see, like I'm looking for something like that in West Africa, and I'm pretty sure they are, but it's just not as popularized as the other universities. But like,
I heard, or I seen that some places in Africa, the schools don't allow you to speak your native language.
Well, so that was more so a remnant of the colonial era.
oh, yeah,
Right. When we talk, once again, I mentioned in Ngugi wa Thiong'o, his book Decolonizing the African Mind, and of course Kwame Nkrumah, who was the first president of Ghana, talked about this as well. That when one went to a colonial school, they were
Mm,
speaking their own language, their native tongue, and of course and the oftentimes they would be beaten if they spoke their
mm,
native tongue, just like we
yeah.
were beat here in the West for speaking our native tongue during the Holocaust of enslavement. So
Hmm.
right.
understanding that the Holocaust of enslavement and colonialism were very similar.
Exactly.
And
But
so
the
real quick,
young lady that I heard say this is another Nigerian YouTuber, and she's younger than me. This girl is in her 20s, like maybe 26, 27. And so she was saying that was happening when she was in I guess primary school. So that had to be in the 90s, you know.
right. So
So I
that means
believe
that
in
so that's
definitely
yeah. So that means
no, I believe
that is a
definitely in
remnant.
colonial times.
Yeah, yes, that is a
Right.
remnant
It's
of
still
colonialism.
tricky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Certain countries, I don't know all, but you know, she's in
Mhm.
Nigeria, so that's what she was saying.
A real quick snapshot review says, what did Phil Scott say? I'm not familiar with him saying anything lately, but Phil Scott was someone who had a Pan-Africanist disposition, a great right. He created the African Diaspora News Channel, and then he flipped and started focusing on FBA. And I can recall when I
Oh,
really
I
started
watch
getting
him.
and when I really started getting heavy in these YouTube streets, I was actually on Dinah's channel, and
Right.
he came on there and he was talking about what Haitians they create their own communities and da 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 da. And I said, well, what's wrong with that? And he, of course, didn't have a retort, right? And I woke up the next morning, I had like 200 more subscribers than I had before because he was making a number of claims that were actually adverse to the facts, and he was simply parroting what Tariq Nasheed stated. And so I took issue with Phil Scott because he has a very large and sizable platform.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he does.
he made a number of claims that, of course, just were adverse to the facts and were, of course, uh, patently false. And so, another thing, Brother Phil was someone who would always state, as an African American, you need to have an African plan. You need to have a plan to go to the continent if things hit the fan here in
But you
America.
know what? I
Hold on,
wonder, I'm gonna be honest.
real
Oh,
quick.
sorry to cut
And
you off. Go ahead.
then he started speaking out against brothers and sisters from the continent and the Caribbean. Made no sense to me whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Why would he do
right
that?
sister.
No, I was just wondering why
For
would
the
he
algorithm.
do that?
Well, I
For
would
the
argue
algorithm
because
to get that check.
FBA and black xenophobia was the color of the day. That's what was gaining currency on social media, and we know most
Right.
people they make
Money off of that.
yeah, and so most people they make content based on what's going to get clicks and views.
Yeah, for the algorithm.
Reality.
Okay.
For example, I was on a guy's platform called No Fugazi, and he said on the platform that women shouldn't have the right to vote. Right? He said that's why this country is going to hell in a handbasket. I said, so you are opposed, you want to repeal the 19th Amendment. He didn't even know what the 19th Amendment was. I said, shut the front door, right? We just started having a conversation. He said, well, in Europe, women didn't have the right to vote. I said, well, that's giving Eurocentric, even though you're a black man. But I stated, here's the issue. I said, in medieval Africa, women had the right to vote. He said, well, if that's true,
Right.
they also serve in the military. I said, yes. He said, well, that's why they were colonized by Europe. I said, well, actually, that is not the reason why. I've studied colonialism. I know very well what happened. And I said, so once again, it's triggering me that you're willing to be so confident making a claim that is adverse to the facts, right? That is horrible. So then he asked me, can you provide an example of an African nation that had the women fighting in the military and they were able to overcome European aggression? I said, I could give you two. One is Ethiopia. Shout out to March 1896, the Battle of Ottawa. And then, of course, the second is a derivative of Africa, which is, of course, Haiti.
I knew I knew that Ethiopia beat the Italians, but I didn't know a woman had anything to do with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
on the
about
battlefield.
Nubia?
Matter of fact, Menelik II, his wife was one of the commanders of a particular army.
And
I did not
Nubia.
know that.
They whooped Nubia beat beat the Romans.
Right.
What's her name? Queen
Candace?
Amina, something like that. Aminas.
Yeah.
I don't know the name, so I don't want to say.
So like I said, it's this type of rancor where people are just making claims, throwing these things out here. And here's the other issue, because I don't try to come off as someone who is classist, but most people do not have the luxury of going to college and studying African and African American history.
I agree, because I didn't have that luxury. So anything that I have to learn, I have to learn on my own, or even study. Like you learn. If you have that thirst for the knowledge, you will learn.
Yeah.
But you can't just run around here ignorant.
And that's where it becomes dangerous, because that thirst for knowledge, people take advantage of it.
Yes.
And I've been through that. As Brother Lumumba, he'll tell you the whole. I don't even want to mention it, but the whole NOI. I've been through all these little different. You start realizing that, wow, none of this stuff is actually gonna provide what I need and give me actually what I'm looking for, which is the liberation of Black people globally. It's not going to give you
Right.
much. Most of it is just like it's all rhetoric, but you have to really be able to differentiate, be able to do like certain type of research,
Right.
and that's
And to
where
be able to do that research is time consuming. Most people are working jobs that are very
Mhm.
tiring and taxing. So it
Mhm.
plays an issue. This is one of the reasons we created the platform, because I would be able to use my education along with Brother Dwayne Omawale, who's the resident historian here at Lumumba Speaks and Be Quiet Network, to actually, provide some factual information to a lot of the information that misinformation that a lot of our brothers and sisters receive.
Well,
Very
may I
quick
ask you a
example.
question?
Yes, go right
What
ahead.
if in my journey of learning more, what would be a book that you may recommend that I would be good to read to start off with?
I would tell you what. I would tell you the book that I started off with.
Okay, tell me.
Introduction to Black
my
Studies
pen.
Introduction to Black Studies by Dr. Milana Karinga.
that was your first book.
This was the first book I put.
Introduction of Black Studies.
Introduction to Black
Okay,
Studies.
well, I'm gonna
Fourth
get me
edition.
that book.
Fourth
I
edition.
started with
by Dr.
Malcolm
The
X.
Milana
fourth
Karinga.
edition.
Yes.
The fourth edition.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm gonna grab me one of those. I read Malcolm
Uh,
X too. I read that book. That was good. The
Right. The second
autobiography.
book I would tell you to get, starting off,
Mm-hmm.
African American Psychology, fourth edition, from Africa to
African.
America.
Let me write that down too. Hold on. Let me write that down.
These were
African
the first
American
two books
psychology.
I purchased when I started my higher education journey.
Okay. African American study. Wait, say it one more time because I want to write it again.
African American Psychology,
Psychology, and what was the other one?
from Africa to America, fourth edition.
From Africa to America.
Right, and then
Fourth
the next
edition.
is the Introduction to Black Studies by Dr. Milana Karinga. Fourth
Introduction.
edition.
Okay. Introduction. Say introduction to what again?
Black Studies.
Oh, Black Studies. Okay,
Right.
Black Studies. Fourth
Yes,
edition.
Brother Kevin says Lumumba basically Phil Scott flip flops. He says FBA rhetoric 1 minute, then say Pan-African content another. Hence he sends mixed messages when it suits him for clicks and views to appeal to everyone. Facts on facts on facts. That's the issue that I had. So I said this is someone who is extremely disingenuous. I mean,
I just want to make sure, is Phil Scott the dark skin heavy man, the African dress? Okay, I just want to make sure.
Right. And also Sister Brenda Gail Plummer, you might want to check her out as well. Some of her literature.
Gail Plummer.
Brenda Gail Plummer. Brother Kevin mentioned her in the comments. So
I'm gonna write that down. So Gail Plummer.
And so what happens is you find individuals who are willing to be whatever they
Plummer.
need to be to, of course, make money.
Right. I mean, I used to watch his channel all the time. I don't agree with some things he says. Some things he says is good, but then sometimes I'm not gonna lie. For him to be so educated, he does go off a little bit.
Well, here's the thing: he's not educated.
He's just like somewhat
he's not. I didn't know.
He's not really articulate, but he's just somewhat well spoken.
Yeah, this is not someone who is
okay. He's he's intelligent. That's what I would say. He's intelligent. You know.
Well, very quickly, OMKAL. I need you to cam up and queue. I just need to make sure you're not trolling. Then I can bring you into the conversation. So, all right, got you. All right, you can turn your camera off, and I'll bring you into queue.
I was gonna suggest Dr. Amos Wilson, but I'm probably that's probably a little too much.
Yeah.
No, I mean I could always get it because I'm trying to get the Black Law Dictionary, all kind of stuff. Anything just to enlighten my mind. So, what's the name of the book again?
Well, Dr. Amos Wilson, The Blueprints of Black Power.
Dr. Amos Wilson, The Blueprints of Black Power.
Yeah,
The Blueprint for Black
Economic
Power.
Imperative. If you still got the screen, I got the book right here. Now, here's the issue, sister. The book is about 1,000 pages.
Yeah, it's like 900 and some change.
Yeah, so Blueprint of Black Power by Dr. Amos Wilson and more political and economic.
But you can start with he has multiple books though, so you can start with something smaller. And also you might like Marimba Ani. I love her book, Urugu.
What is it?
Right.
Mari.
Mari.
Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat, B-Quillan.
Okay. No, and because I have another, I share these things with other people. So even if I didn't read it right away, somebody else, like I have a friend, I'll tell them, like, look, read this book. Right. Somebody recommends it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Brother OMKAL.
Brother Omkal. You always forget. Omkal.
Peace, brother.
Yes, and snapshot reviews,
Okay,
philosophy
sociology.
from Marcus Garvey is a good one as well.
Peace to all you brothers and Dr. Lumumba. Thank you for the opportunity. I was listening and I just, although I'm not feeling good, I've been sick for a few days. I want to react on some questions which were raised about, the studies or the learning or the teaching of African history in African school, on the continent. Because I'm a guy who originally from Congo, as Brother Lumumba knows, since we've been exchanging here and then, and I've appeared on the program before. Was born on the continent, grew up there, and I can speak for probably the program in Congo, Burundi, since I know also Rwanda. So most of Central African and some Southern African country, even in East Africa, like Tanzania and Kenya. So this is the education, guys. Yes, in what we call their primary school, what here you consider as elementary school, we do learn a little bit. It's like introduction to African history. They teach us regularly about, first of all, like in Congo, when it comes to Congo, the education, when you are introduced to education system, you are taught in two languages. First, you are taught in an African, authentic African language, which, because Congo is bigger, it has four national language, which is Swahili in the east, Lingala in the west north, and Kikongo in the west part of southern part of it, and in the central, it's Chiluba, or some people refer to it as Kikasai. Those are three authentic African languages which are considered as national language of Congo, in which you are taught in introductory. So you are taught in your which, because these are the language which are mostly spoken in these areas. So they start teaching you in this language and also in the language, so-called official language, which is colonial language. When it comes to Congo, is French. So they are you to a little bit of French, and they are teaching you in this one because this is the national language which you speak there. That will be like a first grade, what you call here first grade, second grade, third grade. So you start, when they teach you history, in history classes, they will start teaching you Congolese, like a Congolese history about some kingdoms, some most known kingdoms in Congo, like Congo Kingdom, Luba Kingdom, Lunda Kingdom, Then, unfortunately, they don't teach you about
Belgium.
And then they will teach you, because most of those research were done by, of course, there were some Congolese before. It used to be, mostly Belgian literature, but now in these years, because there is a lot of African historian, like Congolese historian, who they've come up, they've started correcting some of the lies or the propaganda that Europeans were putting in, but there's still a lot of it in some books, because the fundings come from this organization, which are held by these globalists. So when you progress, like in third grade, fourth grade, you start learning other countries' history. Especially they start with European. They will go France, Belgium, then maybe even the US. In like a sixth grade, yes, they will start introducing you to the whole world. Now, when you go to high school again, yes, you're gonna learn a little bit deeper African history. You start learning other African, countries, kingdom. Like, for example, you learn about Zimbabwe, the Great Zimbabwe, the Monomotapa, the Songhai Kingdom, the Mali, the Ghana, and so on. But when it comes to language now in high school, you are mainly taught in French. Like when it comes to Congo, you are taught mainly from third grade and up. You are mainly taught now in French, not anymore in Swahili or in Lingala or in Kikongo or in Chiluba. You are mainly taught in French. And then in grade 8, you can choose to, like in my case, because I went to a great school, I would say, I had the third option of taking English as well from 8th grade. You continue like that, but now here in history, instead of going deeper in African history, they will start mixing up. They will teach you about Egypt, yes, but they're not gonna tell you that it's Kemet. For my case, that's what I realized. I, I I came to know that Egyptian civilization, the way how they will teach you, it's like I've noticed it's probably the way how they are teaching our kids here in the US. Some teacher, they are not gonna mention that it was they're not gonna mention for most of the time that it was a Black African civilization. You might be lucky to get a teacher who's gonna tell you these people they came from the south and so on, but they're not gonna emphasize that they are your people until when you go maybe to university or you start doing your own research. Then you know that, oh, this actually, for example, I came to understand that some first experiment of pyramids were done in an area called Api, which is located today in northeastern part of Congo, nearby Sudan.
Yeah.
Then they materialize it in Sudan and so on. And actually, like even the Ishango, you will be surprised that I found out about Ishango bones after I was out of high school. In high school, they never told us about Ishango bones. Although I finished in the 2000s, So that the situation. And in Tanzania as well, the good thing in Tanzania, the whole of you can call elementary school, even in high school, they still teach you in Swahili. You learn mathematics in Swahili. You learn every class. You learn it in Swahili. That's the good thing about Tanzania, and that's why I always say that Tanzania probably it's among most of my. If I can name 5 countries that will probably help the emancipation of our people, Tanzania, I always name Tanzania in it because of especially their education system. That's what I realized because my dad was doing petrol business between Central Africa and Eastern Africa. So he used to go mostly to Tanzania and Kenya, and sometimes he would take us also when we are on school break. Yes, and I have a lot of Tanzania friends. That's what I realized. I realized that in the high school, they learn everything. And in Tanzania, actually, from 8th grade and 7th grade, they used to encourage kids to pick one technical skill to learn, be it construction or agriculture, or like now, since as I'm older and I've traveled throughout Africa and now I'm in US, I found that it was a great idea because you will finish high school knowing a certain type of skill. Then
trade.
Yes, like a trade. Then you'll choose to either continue with it to university or go to special trade school, or you start working, or whatever you do with it. Which it was good. It was great.
So do Congo teach about Leopold? I don't like calling him king. Like, do they teach about him?
Yeah, when they teach about the history of Congo, they teach about the atrocities of Leopold too. Yes, that's They teach us about those atrocities, and they teach us that. Actually,
and do they speak on how that still affects the area to this day?
Yes, they still up to this day. But the only bad thing is that with the current mediocre leadership which we have, I've heard that the Swahili, the mother tongue, the national African language, it seems like it has been reduced to fewer classes than it used to be before. And probably they are canceling civic classes, civic and politics classes in South, which is not good. Yeah.
What kind of class is that?
You said what?
Like you was asking what type of classes is
I didn't hear. That's why I was.
Oh, the civic
Oh,
class.
no, I didn't hear him. He said civic.
Yeah, civics, like politics and civics, like how when those classes used to be the class where they would teach you the duty of a citizen to his country, to his family, and like in primary or what you call elementary school here, they will teach you like it's kind of moral and civics. They'll teach you that you as a kid, you have rights from your parents, but you also have duties towards your parents, like
Right.
respect to the community, respect to the elders. It was in those type of classes.
They
So
took out.
yeah, it seemed like there is some NGO which are providing funding. Instead of teaching this type of classes, they are now teaching them this what you call genres, genders.
Oh God, no.
Yes.
Oh, the whole gender. Oh, hell
Yeah,
no.
probably yes.
That's crazy.
So is there like any Pan African organizations in Congo? Would you say?
Oh my God. Like me, I was born in Pan-Africanism and I grew up in it. And like I spoke to Lumumba from the time when I heard Lumumba name, I was like, oh, this might be my brother's spirit. So Congo, the enemy have tried to fight that, but if you know the story of Lumumba, especially
Yeah.
the eastern. So in Congo, it's like without like without like institution that teach you Pan-Africanism, but it's like you are born in it, because most of those grandparents, the parents who their fathers were in the MNLC Lumumba movement, they are Pan-Africanists to the core.
Mm-hmm.
So as their grandchildren or great grandchildren who we are born, we from the family, in whatever education you are getting from the family ground, you start learning about some of those history and some of the behavior that you need to take as African, the duty that awaits you as somebody from Congo, But I can't say that it's every family, but
Yeah.
especially in the area where Lumumba's movement was,
That makes sense.
it's many families, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
And that's why you see, for example, if you look at the Congo, since like the 1996, the plan was to divide Congo in few countries. Up to now, they haven't succeeded because there is that ideology. We are one. Our destiny is one. We are Pan-Africanist. We will fight it until, if they can exterminate all of us, so be it. That's why you can hear now in Congo, there's more than 10 million people have died. I know a lot of people don't know this, other than those who are informed, who have been reading a lot, because they are even suppressing the true information of what is going on in Congo.
Yeah, that's facts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, is it so I'm from Western Africa, but I never actually went to like what you would call secondary school in Africa. It was mainly primary school.
Yeah.
But was you guys taught in like Central and Eastern Africa about the transatlantic slave trade?
Yes, you are taught. Yeah.
And about the trans-Saharan slave trade?
Yes, also, yes.
Oh, we wasn't taught that.
From primary school, like us, because the East African trade, some of our people were victim, like us in Congo. We were victim of that Eastern or Arab slave trade.
Yeah, the trans-Saharan slave trade.
So they teach us a little bit from primary school, but when you go to high school, then you learn both. The Eastern slave trade and the transatlantic slave trade. But I noticed that they put more accent on transatlantic slave trade. I think because of the European involvement and the Belgian way, and because the Congo Kingdom was also mainly affected on that, and our brother in Angola and Angola. Yeah. So yes, you learn about that. I think for most people, it's only that there is many classes that we take in high school that you don't store all the information. So some people might forget and say, oh, I don't think that I learned about this.
Yeah, I never heard about that.
Yeah, but we learned it
until I started reading.
Yes. It's just there is so many classes that you take, so you forget the information. And because another challenge, I think, because of all these challenge that the continent has gone through, in many countries, you don't have books. You are given this, how do you call it here? Notebooks for yourself to take notes. So the teacher will write on the blackboard or on the board, then you take notes. So do you see? It takes a lot of time to to get all those notes. I think that's the other challenge. That's why we don't go through a lot.
Support, like
Yeah.
the class,
Yeah.
because like the school I went to definitely was not a top school.
Yeah.
So I think the class also plays a part, like in what class you're in Africa. Because people don't realize there's a class issue in Africa too. That some Africans are really, really, really rich, and some are really, really, really poor.
Well, yes.
Like the in between is very hard.
Yes. Yeah. There is that.
And the other issue, Brother Biqualan, is that you attended a parochial school.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
right. So they was primarily focused on religious instruction,
religion,
rather than actually learning world history, civics, economics, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So just something to, of course, consider. Well, family, we're going to get ready to close out. So just want to provide everyone with a chance to, of course, make a final statement before we close out. Final comments. Anyone?
I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to be part of the panel, and I'm going to follow you now. And I just had a good time. Thank you.
It was nice meeting you, sis.
You too. You too. Likewise.
Absolutely, and we expect you to be pulling up on a regular basis.
You know I am now. And even if I'm not on the panel, I'm gonna be in the comments. I'm gonna be here.
All right.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good. All right.
I almost said Merry Christmas. I had to check myself. See, that's the indoctrination right there, Brother Boomer. I just want to say, I just want to say,
what did Denzel say in the movie? That's the slave mind. That's the slave mind. Denzel, that's the slave mind. He still got the conquerors here, but
yes.
All right, very good, very good. Brother, I'm Kyle. Any last thoughts?
Just peace to everybody. Happy New Year. We are about to start the new year, and I'll advise, because I know not everybody can get the books. I saw there was that book somebody recommended, the destruction of
Black civilization, yes,
and how the European
underdeveloped Africa.
Yes, if you can,
absolutely.
Yeah, if you wanna know, because I think what is going on in the Great Lakes, as I always tell Brother Lumumba, it's capital to our development as Black people. So I'll recommend also Holocaust in Congo, if you can. Holocaust in Congo.
Yeah, we're going to do a show on that. We're going to do a show on that. And these are both of the books, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, by the late great scholar, Master Walter Rodney, and of course, Destruction of Black Civilization by Dr. Chancellor.
I heard of that one.
Yeah, so we're always on deck here at the Lumumba Library. You know that.
You got Carter G. Woodson back there, though?
I got Carter G. Woodson. Come on.
Yeah, you got to pull him up.
Come on now. Seriously? You got to ask that question.
I was setting you up. I want you to pull it up. That's why.
You know what I mean? If you questioning, I'm going to get you in the weight room. You talking like that. I'm going to get you in the weight room. You talking like that.
And I recommend that because you can see, even the United States president has never, probably in his mandate, I can't remember that he set foot in Africa, but he only set foot in Africa to go for that country. If you don't know the meaning of Biden going to Angola, it was not for Angola. It's because of that corridor, the Lobito corridor. And that corridor, it's a corridor which will help the United States get the wealth from Congo, out of the continent, and to their industries. The copper, cobalt, the platinum. I mean, not but there is this what's it called? The one which goes into it's
vibranium.
No,
maybe I don't know. It could be vibranium.
Cobalt.
There is another mineral which is they are all after right now, which goes into
they're extracting.
Yeah, I can't remember. Not.
You talking about the gas?
It's okay. We know they stealing
lithium. Lithium. Yes. Lithium. Yeah, there is a lot of lithium in southern part of Congo, so they are all after that. And the US by some they sold their biggest company over there, which was owned by Freeport McMoran. They thought they sold it to Americans, Chinese American, but it was actually real Chinese. So they want to to recuperate some other mineral there. So it's very, very vital.
Biqualan, any final thoughts?
Oh yeah, I just want to say we need to learn more about each other. We need to educate ourselves instead of just basically degrading ourselves. Because anything you say about a black person in the diaspora, the same thing can be said about a black person in the continent, and likewise. So, and those are the same comments that's being used by enemies anyway. So we need to learn more about each other. Call out the collaborators. I don't want to use the other C word. We need to call them out because they're in every population, not just in Africa or just in America. It's everywhere there's black people. You're always going to have a class that's just collaborators. So we need to call those out, and learn more about each other. Pan-Africanism or perish, man.
Very good. Pan-Africanism or perish. Family, appreciate you all watching. Until next time, y'all know what to do. Brother Biqualan, I want you to stay on.
Hello?
Yes.
Good night.
Oh, I didn't
Always
just watch.
Bet on Black. And happy Kwanzaa Eve.
Yes, happy Kwanzaa.
Before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you for supporting the channel. And remember, here at Lumumba Speaks, we always bet on Black. Peace.